Hello everyone and welcome to Slipjoint Sawyer. We're back out in the shop or garage today. We're going to be doing a cleanup on this. This is one I picked up very recently. It's a buck and I believe it's dated between 71 and 73. But please, if you know any more about dating bucks than me, please let me know. I've tried my best online to be able to date it, but it's so difficult. But you can see the sheath here needs some really good sort of clean up. You've got a little bit, it looks like a little bit of mold down here. It's quite dry. You can see it needs a bit of a polish on the inside, bits like that. But it's a nice old style sheath, and you can see with the belt loop being quite a lot taller than the new ones, and this is for a 112. So I picked up some Fibings saddle soap, so we're going to try that today in the video and see what it's like to clean up leather. And I've also got some Autosol here to polish up the knife. And here it is, the flat bolstered Buck 112. And you can see straight away a main difference between this and a modern one. The modern ones have the curved bolsters and they have 3 brass rivets holding it all together. So you have one here, and one here, whereas this only has the 2. And you'll notice as well, there is no nail neck. But it doesn't need too much work doing to it. It's just going to be sort of a clean-up, not so much of a restoration, just bringing it back to its former glory. But if any of you don't know, the Buck 112 is 1, 2, 3, 4, about 4¼ inches closed. It's a lock back, so unfortunately not UK legal. And it has a blade length of right about 3 inches with a cutting edge of, what's that, 2.6. Now it may have lost a little bit of length, seeing as it has been sharpened and used. But whoever sharpened it knew what they were doing. And the action, I mean, if you hold the button down, it is free. Like, there is nothing stopping that blade. You can see the tang stamp there. Got Buck 112 and USA, so it's a 3 line, which makes it into sort of the 70s era. But it's not inverted, and you can see the finish on that blade. So I believe this would be 425 steel. I could be wrong. You got some beautiful ebony on there as well, which will really pop once it's buffed, and then I put a bit of oil on it. But yeah, what I'm going to do is we're going to take it over to the fibre wheel and give it a nice polish. So nothing too major. Doesn't really need the edge reprofiled. It's pretty good. Just obviously needs a little bit of a sharpen. And a buff, really. So yeah, I'm going to crack straight on with it. I'm going to move the camera now over to my sort of... Well, let's show you my new little tool. If I move the camera over, we can have a look what I picked up. Apologies for that, I did have to pause for a while. Neighbour started using a chainsaw, and now as soon as I press record again, the seagulls have turned up, so we're just going to have to deal with seagulls, so sorry for that. But this is what I picked up. It's just sort of something from Amazon. It's sort of a mini, sort of a hobbyist sort of tool. So you've got like a fibre wheel on here, which is great for buffing off rust or just doing a rough polish. It's also got a sanding belt on here, which you can reverse in either direction, so you can also go clockwise, anti-clockwise. And then on the very right-hand side here, which is quite hard to see, is a buffing wheel. So it's a nice soft, sort of like microfiber on a wheel. Just put a bit of polishing compound on there, let it run, and you can just gently hold the knife on it, and it polishes it absolutely fantastically. But yeah, I think I paid like £60 for that and all the accessories, which includes loads of these, a couple more of these, and about 6 or 7 spare belts as well. And that was from Amazon. But I'm just going to jump straight into it. I'm going to get the knife sorted first, and then we'll have a look at the saddle soap and see how that comes on. But yeah, I'm going to put my safety glasses on for this because I didn't wear them yesterday and I got loads of stuff in my eyes and I don't fancy that again. So let's just get on with it. So fiber wheel then is very sort of soft on metal, so it won't, and he started chainsawing again, so it won't start a buff off much of the metal, it just sort of polishes it up. But you can see here how well it's buffed that wood and cleaned up that wood. See that on there, and the polish on the brass. So now you can see it is a bit scratched, but the polishing wheel on the other side will take all that off, and you can see the comparison. It's quite dull this side, not really much polish, and compared to this, it's much better. So we'll just do the rest of the knife bit by bit and just see what it looks like. So you can see how well that's coming out on there. Nice little bit of a polish on the blade. Now that it will look a bit spotty when you're using this fiber wheel, but honestly once you buff it off on the other side, it really sort of pops. Hope you managed to see enough of that footage anyway. Obviously I can't get myself in the camera while I'm doing it. I thought what we would do now is move across to the buffing side, and I'll show you sort of how I would polish the knife. Okay, so we're on the other side now. This is the buffing wheel I was talking about. You can see that sort of fibrous material on there. I'm going to be using a bit of Auto Sol to polish this, and you don't need very much of it. Here's Auto Sol. It's a bit like Flitz, but I'm guessing this is what we get in the UK instead of Flitz, because as what I can tell after being to Texas and using some of John's Flitz, it's very similar. But I will say this smells a lot worse than Flitz. And all we're going to do is rub a little bit on the blade. Just being careful not to cut ourselves, because this knife isn't sharp, but it's got enough of an edge on it where I will cut myself. So we're just going to get all the parts of the blade, just like so. So you can see it's fully sort of covered. And then we're just going to give it a buff on that polishing wheel. And the best way I found to do this is to have the blade rotating this sort of direction, so it will be anti-clockwise if you're facing it this way. And just check which way that is. I think wrong way. So we're going to do it this way, and then if I hold the knife underneath like this, I know it's quite close to the guard here, but you're able to angle it and it makes it a lot easier to buff rather than trying to hold it on the top here. It can be very annoying. And I've set it the wrong way again. So you can see this side has been done. So you can see we've got a nice shine on there now. Sorry, the lighting's not the best in here. I know it should be better. And the way I did that, so the wheel revolving this way, so you're not having the blade attacking this, it's pushing this way down the blade. So now I want to do this side of the blade. Obviously the sharp edge is facing up, so I'm going to reverse the direction. And then there's a little bit of leftover compound on the blade, so we're just going to sort of buff that off by hand. And I mean, that's nothing out of the ordinary. Obviously, as it heats up, it does sort of dry as you're using it, but as long as you don't get the blade too hot, you're absolutely fine. I mean, it's a buffing wheel, so it's not going to heat up the blade that much anyway. So now we're just going to work on the rest of the knife with the auto sole. I'm not going to cake the knife because I don't really want to get it on too much on the wood. And I don't mind a bit of residual, but I don't really want it to be covered on the wood. So we'll just work on the top half first. Those little bits around the lock back I'm going to have to do by hand. The wheel's too big to get in there, but that should be enough to get it. If I buff it off with a cloth, we should be golden. Just get those bits I was on about to do by hand with the cloth. And the only other bits I think we're going to have to do by hand are the pins. Well, specifically this one, it's a little bit lower down. So I'm just going to get a little bit of that and just sort of work it over that. This will help clean off a bit of the wood as well. And we'll just give that a bit of a hand buff. There we go. And we'll do the same with the other side. Now you could go all out with this and you could go down to like, I don't know, 3,000 grit, 5,000 grit sandpaper to get it like glass. But if any of you are familiar with my channel or know me, I like to use my knives. So they're going to be filthy, used up. The brass is going to be tarnished because I'm going to love carrying this thing. Been looking for a square bolted 112 for a very long time. Managed to pick one up at such a great price as well from Dan over at Bladebridge. But that's not far off with the cleanup of the knife, at least anyway. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to oil it now. I'll put it to one side and let it soak, and we'll do the cleanup of the sheath. So I'll be back with you in a second. Okay, so we're back over at the bench now. Put everything away I didn't really need. Have a bit of a closer look up at the sheath here. You can see that bit of dirt down here. Does need a very good sort of clean up. I mean, it's not incredibly dry, but it's not sort of soft apart from this bit here, which is quite soft. And this is what I picked up. Fibing saddle soap. So this for Renew handbags, holsters, belts, pretty much anything leather related really. I wanted a smaller pot, but they only had this one. It's quite large, but I will use it. This is made in America, and the directions are pretty simple. So you just dampen a cloth, rub lightly over the soap to produce a lather, then apply to the leather surface, and then you have to leave the leather to dry. So once this is done, the leather will be damp, of course, because we're using the damp rag for this. So you need to make sure give it at least 24 hours to dry, so that you know you're not going to be sealing in any of that moisture. Otherwise, that's how you get mold. But here's what it looks like. It's just sort of like a paste. And we're just going to take the rag and create some sort of lather and then just see how we get on. So it just says to sort of do this. And then we are just going to go for it. Smells quite nice, this stuff as well. It's always a bonus when the cleaning product doesn't want to take your nostrils off. So a lot of them can be quite strong. You want to make sure when you're using this stuff, you want to get all the interior bits as well. Don't forget about any of those under all the folds, all the stitching as well, because it will all need a really good clean. And then what we're going to do is we're going to work it into this bit as best we can. Now, of course, this inner leather is a bit rougher, so it can be quite hard to get it to sort of rub across, but we'll do our best. Try and get in there and clean that out as well. Plus, this stuff doesn't only clean, it says, what does it say? It says clean and polish in one easy step. So it won't be the shiniest once you're done. It will be clean, and I've ordered some really nice sort of leather polish, beeswax stuff designed for saddles and things like that. And when I ordered it, I was reading about it, and it turns out it was made in Ruth. Now, Ruth is about 7 or 8 miles from where I live. So it's a nice local product to use. I mean, that already feels so much better. Don't forget about the sides as well. And then I just need to go and get a clean cloth and we will sort of buff it off and then take a look at the final result before it's waxed tomorrow. So I've got myself a clean cloth so we can hang this one out the way, and I'll keep that then for saddle soap as it makes sense. Let's put the lid on this and put this away. So that looks like it's going to last me a lifetime with how much is left in the pot. We're just going to sort of buff this off. Now it will be quite matte in colour because of course we have cleaned it, but it's going to be nicely conditioned, and then when I get the wax on it after it's had time to dry, this thing will look fantastic, and it'll be protected for many years to come as well. Make sure I get in there and dry as much of that out as possible. Give that a bit of a wipe off. That cloth to one side as well. So here is how the leather turned out. No more crusty mold down here. Nice and clean. Nice and supple now. Very impressed with that leather cleaner. So I'd recommend it. Anyone that wants to do some sort of polishing of leather or leather cleaning. Fibing saddle soap, I think it's like £12 on Amazon here. See that great buck logo at the top here as well. And then now we can buff off the excess oil on the knife and take a look at the final sort of steps. All it'll really need is to be sharpened. But I mean, you'll get the gist of that from the aesthetics. Wow. Look at this thing now. How much better does that look? Look at that ebony, it looks beautiful. Real deep dark colour. Blade nicely polished as well. I'm going to love carrying this thing. The action is superb. Look at that fantastic 112. But there we go, guys. That is my sort of cleanup, basic sort of cleanup and leather restoration on a 1970s Buck 112 with the flat bolsters. I hope you enjoyed this. Please be sure to like, subscribe, and ring that bell for notifications. And I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace out.